Hello brothers and sisters, welcome another episode of a very powerful confession with our sister who shares her life story with us. She takes us through her journey in her marriage, where her husband, who happens to be a person who practiced dark rituals, decided to use her and her monthly flow for his rituals for money and power. If you are new here, this is Dangerous African Confessions HD, where we bring to you confession stories to help you make your own informed decisions about your walk with God. Without taking much of your time, let us go and listen to the story. Please subscribe if you haven't done so, and also do like and share this video, so others out there can also benefit from this conversation, and hit the notification bell as well, so you will be notified anytime we upload videos.
I never imagined my life would end up like this. It all started when I met him, my husband. At the time, I was just a regular woman, trying to make a living, trying to make sense of the world around me. He was everything I had ever dreamed of in a man: charming, confident, and most importantly, successful. When we met, he was already rich, and I thought, maybe this was the life I had been waiting for. Let me even go back a little bit to tell you about our meeting. It was a bright sunny day when I first met him. I had just started a new job at a small, local shop, and he came in as a regular customer. He wasn't like the others. There was something about him, something that drew me in. He was tall, well-dressed, with an air of confidence that commanded attention. But it wasn't just his appearance, it was the way he spoke. The way he made you feel like you were the only person in the room. We exchanged pleasantries, and soon we started talking. He asked for my number and surely, I gave it out to him. He called me the next day on the phone to introduce himself. We talked for a while and he asked me out for dinner. That was how I got to know him. And that was the beginning of our relationship, I must say. He told me a lot about him over the next period of days. After a while, when he decided to go forward with his intentions about me, he asked that he go see my family. This, I will say, was maybe his own way for proving to me that he was indeed serious about me or something along that line. I remember the moment my mother first saw him. She never liked him in any way. She was always protective of me, as mothers are, and she had her doubts about him from the start. He was too rich, too successful, too distant. She warned me that men like him never marry for love. She said he was after something else. I can recall when one evening my mother told me that he's already got everything. What does he need from you? But you see, I was young and naive. I thought she was just being overprotective. When my mother saw that I was really into the man, she became too much serious and disagreed about me and the man. I will say today that my mother tried a lot to prevent me from falling into this thing that I am going to talk about. I, on the other hand, tried to convince my mother that he's different. I feel something with him. He's been so kind to me, and he makes me feel special. I will tell you with all honesty that time, there was something real special about him that I couldn't explain. It was as though my mother knew exactly what I was going to face in this relationship. She told me some time back that rich men like that, they use women for their own gain, and when they're done, they toss them aside like yesterday's news. She insisted I let the man go and focus on my life. But here was I, fallen in love with this man, and on top of it all, she had enough money to be able to cater for me and my family. So, it didn't make sense for me to just walk out like that. Clearly, I got to a point where I just wanted to prove my mother wrong, to show her that my feelings for the man, and his for me, are genuine. So the most sad thing that happened was that, as the relationship between the man and I deepened, my mother's resistance grew stronger. I began to notice that my mother is becoming more distant, and I felt torn between my loyalty to my mother and my love for the man. The more I fell for him, the more I felt the gap widening between me and my mother. I couldn't understand why I was so drawn to him. And I couldn't understand why my mother wouldn't accept that I loved him. So, what I did was that I talked to several family members about my issues with my mother. And they agreed to come in and help me solve the issue. My aunties, uncles, all came in and had a talk with her on my behalf. My mother couldn't do anything about it, since they are the very family members that do honestly love and cherish her. Ever since my father died, they have been her pillar and everything. And so, I knew it was going to be difficult for her to turn deaf ears to them. It was a victory for a young lady in love, but not a complete one. I knew my mother still didn't trust him, but at least she gave us her blessing. And I thought, maybe, just maybe, everything would work out. Let me go to when we got married, and take it from there. At first, it was all fairy tale bliss. The wedding was grand, and everyone came to celebrate us. But after the wedding, I started noticing things I had ignored before. The way he wanted to control every detail of my life, the way he wouldn't take no for an answer, the way he pushed me further and further into his world of wealth and luxury and control. At first, I didn't notice it. I was so wrapped up in the luxury of our life together, in the attention he gave me, that I didn't see the small things. But then, the strange behavior started creeping in. He always wanted to be with me, always wanted to touch me, no matter the time or place. But there was something about the way he did it that felt wrong. It wasn't love. It felt like a need. A demand. I didn't think much of it at first. I thought it was just his way of showing affection. But then the request, the insistence, started to feel different. It didn't matter how I felt, he would always want to be intimate with me, no matter the time or situation. It didn't matter if I was tired, sick, or even if I was in my menstrual cycle. He would push me, even when I said no. He'd ignore my protest, my discomfort, and would always find a way to make it happen. I started noticing some changes in my body. My face looked pale, and I always was feeling exhausted. But then, I thought it was just stress. Maybe I was working too hard, maybe the pressure of our life together was catching up to me. But then my body began to change in ways I couldn't ignore. I started feeling exhausted all the time. I lost weight without trying, and no matter how much I slept, I woke up feeling like I hadn't rested at all. My skin became pale, my body weak. But I pushed through it. After all, I had everything I ever wanted. He loved me. I even had to visit the doctor, but the results were inconclusive. The doctor was surely concerned but couldn't identify the exact cause of my symptoms. What he ended up doing was prescribing medication for me to try for us to see what happens. It got worse. He started becoming more forceful, more demanding. It wasn't just about intimacy anymore, it was about control. It was as if he needed something from me, something I couldn't understand. I felt like I was losing myself, and every time I tried to speak up, he would push harder, telling me that I was being too sensitive, that all couples go through this. But deep down, I knew it wasn't normal. Something was wrong. The painful part of this whole thing as I was going through is that I couldn't talk to my mother to see the kind of advice she was going to give me. Because I didn't want her to say that, she told me and I didn't listen to her. Brother, it got to a time I couldn't even recognize myself in the mirror. It was clear something was seriously wrong. I was getting sicker by the day. My body was breaking down, and no matter how much I tried to hide it, the fatigue, the pain, and the weight loss became impossible to ignore. But he never seemed to notice. He would always tell me I was fine, that I just needed rest, but I knew it was more than that. It couldn't just be stress. Something else was going on, and it felt like I was being drained. I didn't know if that time I began to feel paranoid or not. But little things started to happen that I couldn't explain. You see, there were the strange symbols. I didn't know what they meant, but I found them everywhere. Hidden in places I couldn't explain, like they were put there on purpose. And the dreams, every night I would wake up in a cold sweat, feeling like something was watching me, something dark. I didn't want to believe it, but I couldn't ignore the growing feeling that I was trapped in a nightmare. My husband was to travel out for his business trip where he was going to spend about a week or so. I have even forgot the time. But it was during that period that I had started growing more desperate, and I needed answers as to what was happening. So, I called on a friend and confided in her. Told her reason why I can't talk about it to my mother. She agreed to help me. The very day my friend visited my house, I fell on the ground coming to meet her. I didn't know what happened again, only to wake up at the hospital. But this time, my friend had called her pastor, where he told her, we should pass by his place when I get out of the hospital. When I visited the pastor, he watched me closely and tears had drowned his eyes. I was shocked, but I couldn't say anything. He broke his silence and asked me if I truly wanted the truth. That day, he first told me that my mother had warned me against something that I didn't listen to her. And it was that thing that was causing the problems I have. So, I told him about what happened between me and my mother because of my husband. I remember him telling me that I should promise him I will go and kneel down in front of my mother to ask for her forgiveness before he will go ahead to do whatever he can for me. He then said that, even if he finishes with the prayers and directions for me, it was my mother's duty to release my spirit from whatever bondage I am in by laying her hand over me. Because, the day my father died, my mother assumed the role of my father. And it was something that she herself was not aware of. He told me that my husband is responsible for all is happening to you. And my mother had that instinct about my husband, but because she didn't understand what she was feeling, that is why she couldn't explain it well to me. He then went on to tell me that he is involved in dark practices. He said what I have been experiencing, the symbols, the demands, the sickness, it's all part of a ritual. He's been using me and draining my energy. He said it wasn't just a physical illness, it's a dark, occult force. He advised that I need to get away from him before it's too late. He revealed so much to me that I couldn't even handle the truth anymore. The sickness, the growing distance, was all not natural. My blood, my energy, is part of a ritual. He's been using me to feed something far darker than I could ever imagine. That was why he always wanted to have me in my menses. He then revealed that I was the third woman. He is doing that too. And he's been moving around the country, city to city, and doing that. So, when he does it here, he would then move from that place to a totally new place and get another victim. He has been offering my life force in exchange for wealth, influence, and power. He's made sacrifices to his dark god, and I was the vessel. Honestly, I couldn't take it anymore. My mind spins as he continued explaining the details. He told me how some wealthy men, those involved in occult practices, use women as sacrifices for spiritual power, drawing on their life force and energy. These practices, he said, often happen in secret, disguised as regular relationships, and the victims are often unaware until it's too late. He gave me some directions to do and prayed for me, but told me not to sleep in my house that day. I was to go to my mother's place, beg her, and then go ahead with the directions in her place. That was exactly what I did. I went to our house with my friend, picked some of my things, and left for my mother's place. I gave the main keys to the gateman and the house help, telling them to hand over to their boss when he returns. That was the last time I stepped foot there. Anything that belonged to me in the house, even though I didn't use them ever again, my mother insisted that we go and take them from there, which she did with my friend. So, when he returned from his trip, he called on me several times, and I told him that I couldn't continue being the vessel through which he feeds his god and dark powers. He just hung up on me. He never called on me again. So, what we did was that my mother and my uncle took his drinks and went to his house to give him. I learned later through my friend that my mother even pronounced some curses on him that, if he even come close to me again, may he never see the next day. You see, my brother, I thought love would save me. I thought that the man I married was my soulmate. But I was wrong. I was used. I was nothing more than a pawn in his quest for power. But I survived. I'm still here. And I've learned that no matter how much someone may seem to love you, no matter how much they may promise you the world, you should always listen to your instincts. You should always question what feels wrong. If you're in a relationship that doesn't feel right, if something feels off, please, trust yourself. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't let anyone drain you of your soul for their own gain. You are worth more than that. And the last thing I want to say is that, even though some African mothers may seem too difficult at times, but when it comes to their children, sometimes their instincts never fail. Trust sometimes in the advice of your parents when you are embarking on a life-changing journey like marriage. I have learned that in a very terrible and hard way. She is now my everything. My guide aside the Lord that I worship. My mother is everything in my life. I would love to say that, if you ever have any issue with your mother or father, please try and resolve whatever that problem is. Even if it is them who have wronged you one way or the other, go to them and solve it. For they are your head. It is through them for a reason that your God that you serve allow you to come to this world. He knows that problem will come and He still allowed you to come through them. Honor them, and your days shall be long. Thank you, and I give you all the blessings and love from this side.
Don't forget to please subscribe, share and like our videos. Kindly hit the notification bell so you will be the first to get notification to our videos when we upload. I want to share something important even as we have listened to this message from our sister. This is something I wish we all will know. Relationships are built on trust, respect, and love, but there are red flags we should never ignore. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. Your body, your mind, and your heart will give you signs long before you realize what's happening. Listen to them. Our sister allowed love to blind her. She ignored the signs, pushed aside the discomfort, and thought that the man she married had her best interest at heart. But what she didn't see was that she was being used. Most of our sisters are being used one way or the other in their marriages and relationships, and they often think they can fix or change someone, or that love will somehow conquer all. But I am here to tell you that, sometimes, love is not enough when it's not true or when it's manipulative. It's so important to trust yourself and your instincts. If you're in a relationship that is draining you, physically, emotionally, or mentally, don't hesitate to seek help. Don't let anyone control you or take away your sense of self. You deserve to feel loved and respected, not exploited or manipulated. And finally, I will say that, never stay silent if you feel like you're being mistreated. Whether it's emotional manipulation, abuse, or anything that compromises your health and well-being, speak out. There are people out there who care, people who will listen and help you escape dangerous situations. You are never alone. I tell you today, to protect your body, your heart, and your soul. Don't let anyone take what's rightfully yours. You are worth more than anything else, and you have the strength to walk away from anything that doesn't honor that. Don't fall for flashy promises or emotional manipulation. Don't let anyone lead you astray for their own gain. Stay grounded, stay prayerful, and stay vigilant. I hope this message encourages you to be discerning in your journey. Thanks for watching, and we shall meet again in the next video. Thank you.